Have you ever noticed a lizard suddenly appear in your home, scurrying across the wall, or resting in the corner? Most would dismiss it as a mere coincidence, just another creature going about its business. But what if I told you that its presence holds a profound spiritual meaning? What if this tiny reptile, often overlooked, carries a message meant just for you? Pause for a moment. Imagine this small creature moving silently through your space, not by accident, but as part of a greater plan. In many ancient traditions, including Zen philosophy and Feng Shui, the appearance of a lizard is seen as more than just an ordinary event. It is a sign, a messenger of wisdom, transformation, and patience. Perhaps you've been feeling stuck, burdened by fear, or exhausted by life's relentless challenges. Have you ever wished for a sign, a reminder, that you are not alone in your struggles? The universe often whispers its answers through the most unexpected symbols. And sometimes, those symbols come in the form of a tiny lizard crossing your path. Today, through an ancient Zen parable, we will uncover the 6 powerful lessons that the lizard carries. Lessons of resilience, stillness, emotional clarity, and the hidden power of gratitude. But there is also a final, secret lesson, one that only those truly ready to listen will understand. A lesson that holds the key to unlocking inner peace, personal growth, and deep connection with the world around you. Stay with me, because this is not just another story. It is a journey, one that could shift your perspective and reveal truths you've long overlooked. And by the end of this video, you may never look at a lizard the same way again. Are you ready to uncover the wisdom hidden within this humble creature? Then let's begin. The first lesson, embracing change. Deep in an ancient forest, Zen master Sophia sat beneath the towering trees, her presence as still and wise as the earth itself. A group of pilgrims gathered around her, their eyes filled with curiosity and longing for understanding. In the heart of their circle, a small lizard emerged from the underbrush, its delicate form blending effortlessly with the surroundings. Sophia's gaze followed the creature, and with a gentle smile, she spoke. Have you noticed how a lizard sheds its old skin? It does not resist this change. It embraces it. It knows that growth is impossible without releasing what no longer serves it. The pilgrims leaned in, captivated by her words. One among them, a young woman named Emily, furrowed her brow in contemplation. She had come seeking answers, burdened by fear of stepping beyond the familiar. But master, she hesitated. Change is frightening. How do we overcome that fear? Sophia nodded, her expression warm with understanding. Fear is not the enemy, Emily. It is a companion, a guide. The lizard does not know what awaits it after shedding its skin, yet it sheds anyway. Why? Because it understands that clinging to the old prevents the birth of the new. She paused, allowing the words to settle in. The wind rustled through the leaves, as if nature itself was affirming the lesson. Most people fear change because they see it as an ending. Sophia continued. But what if, instead, you saw it as a beginning? Every time you resist change, you resist your own evolution. The lizard teaches us that transformation is not to be feared. It is the most natural thing in the world. Emily lowered her gaze, deep in thought. But what if I'm not ready? She whispered. Sophia picked up a fallen leaf, dry and brittle. This leaf once thrived, green and full of life. Now it has withered, and yet it does not cling to the branch. It lets go, knowing that its departure makes room for new growth. She released the leaf, watching as the wind carried it away. Readiness is not about knowing what comes next. It is about trusting that you will adapt when the time arrives. The pilgrims exchanged glances, each reflecting on their own struggles. How many times had they resisted change, fearing the unknown? only to find themselves trapped in stagnation. Sophia's voice softened, carrying the weight of wisdom. If you hold on to a past version of yourself, you deny yourself the chance to become something greater. Growth requires surrender. Just as the lizard does not cling to its old skin, you too must release what no longer nourishes you, whether it be fears, doubts, or even relationships that keep you from evolving. Jonathan, an older pilgrim, sighed. But what if we fail? Sophia smiled knowingly. Failure is merely a stepping stone to transformation. The lizard does not shed its skin once in a lifetime. It does so repeatedly, again and again. It does not fear the process, nor should you. She gestured toward the small lizard, now motionless on a rock, basking in the warmth of the sun. See how it pauses, absorbing the light after shedding. It does not rush into its next phase blindly. It takes time to adjust, to grow into the new version of itself. The lesson was clear. Change is inevitable, but fear is optional. Like the lizard, we must not resist transformation. We must embrace it. Sophia's gaze swept across the circle. What is the old skin you need to shed? She asked. What weight are you carrying that is keeping you from moving forward? Silence filled the space, but within it, something profound had shifted. The pilgrims understood. They were no longer merely listening to a story. They were seeing themselves in it. Emily took a deep breath, a small but significant shift in her posture. I think I'm ready, she whispered, a newfound light in her eyes. Sophia smiled. Then you have already begun. And so, the first lesson of the lizard was learned, not through words alone, but through the quiet realization that transformation is not a thing to be feared, but a path to be walked. The leaves above rustled once more, as if the forest itself was whispering in agreement. The second lesson, adaptability and resilience. As the morning light filtered through the dense canopy, Zen Master Sophia observed the lizard before her. The tiny creature, unbothered by the presence of the pilgrims, blended seamlessly with the rock it rested upon. With a knowing smile, she turned to the group. The lizard is not merely a survivor. It is a master of adaptation. It thrives in the harshest of conditions, not by fighting against them, but by flowing with them. The pilgrims listened in quiet anticipation, their minds open, their hearts seeking wisdom. Jonathan, an older pilgrim, with lines of experience etched into his face, sighed. Master, I have weathered many storms in my life, but sometimes it feels like the world changes too fast. How do we cultivate resilience when life becomes too difficult to bear? Sophia's gaze softened. She picked up a small twig and dipped it into the nearby stream. The water swirled around it, undisturbed by its presence. Jonathan, tell me, does the water resist the twig, or does it adjust to its presence? Jonathan watched as the current simply flowed around the obstruction, reshaping itself without struggle. It adapts, he murmured. Sophia nodded. Exactly. The lizard, like the water, does not waste energy resisting change. Instead, it learns to move with it. When danger approaches, it does not fight. It finds safety. When the sun blazes, it does not complain. It seeks shade. And when the time is right, it blends effortlessly into its surroundings. This is the essence of adaptability, knowing when to stand firm and when to bend like the river. The lesson resonated with the group, but a young man named Daniel, his voice filled with doubt, spoke up. But Master, isn't it weak to change who we are, just to fit into the world? Sophia chuckled softly, her eyes gleaming with the patience of someone who had long understood life's paradoxes. Daniel, tell me, does the lizard lose itself when it changes color, or does it ensure its survival? While remaining true to its nature, Daniel hesitated, before shaking his head. It remains a lizard. Exactly, Sophia affirmed. Resilience is not about abandoning who you are. It is about honoring who you are, while learning how to navigate the world around you. Those who refuse to adapt suffer the most. They hold on to rigid expectations, hoping the world will bend to their will. But the lizard teaches us a different way. We can be both strong and flexible, both rooted and flowing. She paused, letting the lesson settle into the hearts of the listeners. Before continuing, many people think of resilience as sheer strength, the ability to endure without breaking. But true resilience is knowing when to yield, when to shift, when to let go. A tree that does not sway with the wind will eventually snap, but the one that bends, that moves with the storm, will always stand tall. When the sky clears, Jonathan sighed again, but this time with understanding. So, resilience is not about fighting against the difficulties of life, but about learning to move through them. Sophia smiled. Yes, Jonathan. And more than that, it is about trusting your ability to adapt. The lizard does not fear change, because it knows that no matter what happens, it will find a way forward. And so must you. A hush fell over the group, as they reflected on their own struggles. How many times had they resisted the inevitable? How many times had they clung to their pain, refusing to shift, when all they needed to do was move differently? Sophia gazed at the lizard once more. The question is not whether life will change. It always does. The question is, will you change with it? The lizard, as if on cue, scurried away, disappearing effortlessly into the world around it. The lesson had been taught, and in that moment, the pilgrims knew they, too, could learn to move forward, not with fear, but with grace. The third lesson, the power of stillness. The sun hung high in the sky, casting dappled light through the towering trees. The forest was alive with movement. Branches swayed, birds flitted between the leaves, and the gentle flow of a nearby stream whispered in the background. And yet, amidst all this motion, a single lizard remained perfectly still. On a sunlit rock, Zen Master Sophia raised her hand, motioning for the pilgrims to look. "Do you see?" she asked, her voice a gentle breeze against the restless energy of the group. While everything around it moves, the lizard remains motionless. It does not rush. It does not act thoughtlessly. It waits. The pilgrims observed in silence, sensing the significance of the moment. Sophia continued, "We live in a world that glorifies constant movement. We are told that to succeed, we must always be busy, always chasing, always doing more. But in this endless pursuit, we forget something vital. That stillness is power." A young pilgrim named Aaron shifted uncomfortably. "But Master, if we do nothing, won't life pass us by?" Sophia smiled, recognizing the common fear. She knelt down and picked up a small twig, then gently placed it into the flowing stream. At first, the water rushed past it, pushing it forward. But as the twig found a place to settle, the water slowed around it, creating small, swirling eddies. "Tell me, Aaron," she said, gesturing to the stream, "is the twig truly doing nothing?" Aaron frowned, watching the way the water responded. "No, it is still, but it is part of the movement." Sophia nodded. "Exactly. True stillness is not about inaction. It is about awareness. The lizard does not sit idly. It waits with purpose. It observes. It listens. It feels. And only when the right moment comes, does it act." She turned to the others, her gaze steady. How often do we make decisions in haste, driven by fear or impatience? How many mistakes do we make because we react rather than respond? The lizard teaches us a powerful lesson. When we learn to be still, we see more clearly. We choose our actions wisely. We move with intention, rather than impulse. A hush fell over the group, as they reflected on their own lives. The rushed decisions, the moments of regret, the times they had acted without thinking. Sophia took a deep breath, her presence anchoring the space. The greatest wisdom often comes not in the noise, but in the silence. When you learn to pause, to truly observe, you will find that the answers you seek have been waiting for you all along. The lizard, as if understanding, remained motionless on the rock, basking in the light. And for the first time, the pilgrims did not rush to move. They simply waited. The fourth lesson, observing emotions. As the afternoon sun cast golden streaks through the trees, Zen Master Sophia picked up a dry leaf from the ground, twirling it gently between her fingers. The pilgrims watched in quiet curiosity, sensing that another lesson was about to unfold. She turned to them and asked, "Tell me, what happens when you hold something too close to your eyes?" A young woman named Emily hesitated before answering. "You can't see anything else." Sophia smiled. "Exactly. And this is what happens when we become consumed by our emotions. Fear, anger, sadness. When we hold them too close, they block our vision, making it impossible to see the world clearly." She placed the leaf on the ground, stepping back. "But when you put distance between yourself and the emotion, what do you see now?" The pilgrims looked down. The leaf was no longer an obstruction. It was simply part of the larger scene. When you step back from your emotions, you realize they are not the whole picture. Sophia explained. "They are just passing clouds in the vast sky of your mind." Jonathan, the older pilgrim, sighed. "But Master, emotions feel so powerful. How do we stop them from overwhelming us?" Sophia's gaze softened. "You do not need to stop them. You only need to observe them. Just like the lizard on the rock. It does not chase every insect that passes, nor does it react to every rustling leaf. It simply waits, watching, unmoved by what does not serve it." She gestured toward the same lizard that had been basking in the sun earlier. It had not moved, though the wind had stirred the leaves around it, and small creatures had scurried past. Most people live their lives like leaves caught in the wind, tossed in every direction by their emotions. She continued. But the lizard remained still, observing. It teaches us that we, too, can watch our emotions without becoming them. Emily frowned. "But Master, how do we observe without getting lost in them?" Sophia knelt down, drawing a deep breath. "Start with your breath. When emotions rise, shift your attention to the inhale and the exhale. Feel the air entering your body and leaving it. This simple act will remind you that emotions come and go, just like the breath, temporary, fleeting, never permanent." A hush fell over the group. They realized that much of their suffering came not from emotions themselves, but from their resistance to them. Sophia looked at them warmly. "When you observe your emotions with curiosity instead of judgment, they lose their power over you. You will see them not as enemies, but as messengers, whispers from within, guiding you toward deeper understanding." She paused, allowing the silence to carry the weight of her words. "So tell me," she asked softly, "will you let your emotions control you, or will you become the observer, like the lizard waiting patiently, unaffected by the passing storms?" The wind rustled through the trees, as if echoing her question. And for the first time, the pilgrims did not rush to answer. They simply observed. The fifth lesson, gratitude as a path to protection. The golden light of the setting sun bathed the forest in a warm glow. The air was calm, carrying the scent of earth and leaves. Zen Master Sophia stood quietly, her gaze thoughtful. as she observed a lizard perched on a nearby branch. Turning to the pilgrims, she spoke softly. In many cultures, the lizard is seen as a symbol of protection. But do you know what protects us most in life? A middle-aged woman named Hannah furrowed her brow. Strength, wisdom, she guessed. Sophia smiled. No, it is gratitude. The pilgrims exchanged puzzled glances. Gratitude, a form of protection? It was not what they had expected. Sophia continued. The lizard does not hoard, nor does it chase more than it needs. It exists in harmony with its surroundings, taking only what is given, and in doing so, it is protected by nature itself. It moves through life with trust, not fear, and this trust comes from gratitude. She bent down and picked up a small stone, rolling it in her palm. When we are grateful, we shift our focus from what we lack to what we already have. We stop clinging, stop fearing, stop feeling as though the world is against us. Gratitude shields us from despair, from envy, from the endless hunger of dissatisfaction. Hannah's voice was quieter now. But what if we don't feel grateful? What if we are struggling? Sophia nodded with understanding. Gratitude is not about pretending that life is always easy. It is about recognizing that even in difficulty, there is something to be thankful for. Start small. Be grateful for the breath in your lungs, the warmth of the sun, the fact that you are here, learning, growing. She placed the stone back on the ground. When you practice gratitude, your energy changes. You begin to attract more goodness into your life. Just as the lizard blends with nature and is protected, you too will find yourself shielded, not by force, but by the peace that comes from contentment. The pilgrims sat in silence, each reflecting on the things they had taken for granted. The sun continued its slow descent, casting long shadows over the forest floor. Sophia's voice was gentle but firm. How many times a day do you focus on what is missing? What if, instead, you focused on what is already here? How would your life change? Hannah inhaled deeply, as if the weight of ungratefulness had just lifted from her shoulders. I understand now, she whispered. Gratitude doesn't change what we have. It changes how we see it. Sophia smiled. And in that shift, you will find the greatest protection of all. The wind whispered through the trees, as if carrying her words into the hearts of all who listened. The final secret lesson, the power of connection. The last light of the sun filtered through the trees, casting golden streaks across the forest floor. The pilgrims sat in deep reflection, their hearts full from the lessons they had learned. Yet, Zen Master Sophia remained silent, gazing at the stream beside them. After a long pause, she picked up a small twig and gently dipped it into the water. The surface rippled outward, creating waves that stretched far beyond the point of contact. Do you see? She asked. Even the smallest action changes the world around it. The pilgrims watched the ripples, mesmerized by their quiet expansion. The lizard, Sophia continued, teaches us many things: adaptation, patience, resilience. But its final lesson is this: we are all connected. Just as the lizard exists in harmony with nature, so too are we woven into the great fabric of existence. No thought, no action, no word exists in isolation. Jonathan, the elder pilgrim, sighed. But Master, how can we ensure that the ripples we create are good ones? Sophia smiled knowingly. Live with compassion, Jonathan. Speak with kindness. Act with awareness. Remember that every being, no matter how small, plays a role in the balance of life. She gestured toward the trees, towering above them. The forest thrives, not because of one tree, but because of the connection between them all. The roots intertwine, the leaves provide shade, The fallen branches return to the earth and nourish new life. It is the same with us. When we see ourselves as separate, we suffer. But when we recognize our connection, we heal. Not just ourselves, but the world. Hannah, her voice soft, yet filled with wonder, whispered, "So, every choice we make matters?" Sophia nodded. "Yes. Every thought you think, every word you speak, every action you take, sends ripples into the world. The question is, what kind of ripples do you want to create?" A hush fell over the group as they absorbed the weight of her words. They had spent their lives thinking they were alone in their struggles, separate from the world around them. But now they saw the truth. Sophia placed the twig back on the ground and bowed her head, as if thanking the forest for its lessons. When you choose love over fear, when you choose kindness over indifference, you don't just change yourself, you bring light to the world. The stream continued its gentle flow, the ripples fading into the vastness of the water. And in that moment, the pilgrims understood. They were not just individuals, walking separate paths. They were part of something far greater. The forest had fallen into a serene stillness, as if nature itself had absorbed the wisdom shared that day. The pilgrims sat quietly, their hearts full, their minds open. Each of them had come, seeking answers, and now they carried something even greater, a deeper understanding of themselves and their place in the world. Zen Master Sophia's voice broke the silence. One final time, the lizard has given us 6 lessons, but the true teaching is this: transformation is always within your reach. Like the lizard, you have the power to embrace change, to adapt with resilience, to be still in the face of uncertainty, to observe your emotions without attachment, to find protection in gratitude, and to recognize your connection to all things. She looked around at the faces before her, eyes now filled with newfound clarity. Now, the question is, what will you do with these lessons? The sun dipped lower, beyond the trees, casting long shadows, as the journey came to an end. But in the hearts of the pilgrims, something had begun, a quiet, but undeniable transformation. And so, they rose, ready to walk forward, not just as individuals, but as beings deeply connected to the world around them. The lessons of the lizard are not just for the pilgrims in this story, they are for you as well. Which of these lessons resonated with you the most? Share your thoughts in the comments below. I'd love to hear your reflections. If this story inspired you, take a moment to like this video, share it with those who might need these lessons, and subscribe to our channel so you never miss another moment of wisdom. Thank you for joining me on this journey. May you walk forward with patience, resilience, and gratitude. Until next time, stay present, stay mindful, and embrace the wisdom all around you.